excuse me. So can we have, say it was 2, 2.5 and 3, please? Somebody else, Peter.
I think that's the best use I've seen of props in a very long time.
Yes.
I think that the exchanging and the illustration, the practicality of everything that she had, the hats, and she turned the hats on and off, the shoes on and off, terrific.
Okay. I forgot for the visitors, sorry, I forgot to say at the beginning that the speech contest which Andrew was entering is the humorous speech contest. So it was okay to laugh and enjoy it, yes. Dennis?
I think Angela sort of displayed a bubbly, radiant disposition in the way she actually presented her presentation. That was
Thank you. Ade?
I love the use of voices with British accents. It was really brought the story to life.
Fantastic, thank you. Hello.
Yeah, I think she set the scene really well, and she used the space perfectly. Thank you.
Say that again.
She set the scene.
Set the scene. Yes.
Then we feel like a theatre.
Yes. Okay. It's good. Lovely. So, anyone? One more? Martin.
I think at the beginning it would just, we know that you go to Singapore, and you do say at the beginning that you go to Singapore. I think it just helps somebody who doesn't know the background just an extra bit to explain. I go to Singapore quite a lot, and I love Toastmasters, and here was I in this situation. The other thing was when you're on the phone, your gesture wasn't to be like this. It was something like your gesture didn't match the fact you said you were on the phone, or the other person was on the phone.
Be clear with the phone gestures. Okay. Now, I was going to say now to recommendations. I think we already got that, Peter.
It would have been, as the whole point of the exercise was that she had the wrong shoes.
Yes.
I felt it would have been very useful to know why you were not allowed to wear open-toed shoes on the ferry. And as I'm here, why couldn't you?
I think in a previous incarnation of the speech there was an explanation. Okay, Tony.
I felt at the beginning the mention of the winter shoes didn't add anything to the story, as no you felt.
Okay, just took up time.
Yeah.
Mike.
Unless I missed it, I found myself puzzled for the first minute as to the relevance of the hat that she was wearing at the beginning of the speech.
It was a winter hat, but I thought it was a winter hat.
Never alluded to, it never became relevant.
So you had your bubble hat on. Thank you. Jill?
The blue hat, I felt, Angela, you needed to wear it every time you spoke. You put it on for the first time, and then you left it off when you spoke again. So it needed continuity.
Voice, as the security guard. Okay. Tony?
The line about the ferry pier now,
yes.
I'm not sure that's altogether appropriate. That could offend some people. Talking about the I know what it's getting at, but I'm not sure.
Have a think about it. Okay. And let's finish off with something.
I had a recommendation.
A recommendation. Okay.
I think I felt she carried us nicely through the story. The conclusion was a bit brutal.
A bit sudden.
A bit sudden.
Yes.
I think.
So there's a little bit of structure.
A bit maladroit.
Maladroit, very good. Okay, and to finish off with a nice commendation and something positive. Cameron, there must be one more.
It's an amusing tale, so it's...
Were you amused by it?
Yes.
Yeah. We felt, like I said, like a theatre. Because carried along in the story, in all the variation.
And for a humorous speech, she was appropriately colourfully dressed.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that as Ade is here, I couldn't say without him she probably would have won it. But as he's here and he won, I can't mention that she was good enough to have won.
Okay, even though she didn't.
Even though she didn't.
Okay. Thank you very much. We will move on to our second speaker, which is Martin Bowe. And Dennis, I think, has stepped in again the last moment. Denise Sincere was going to do it, but she had to drop out for work purposes. That's our second change to the agenda. So Dennis Newman, who has been practicing his evaluations and has made a point of saying that evaluation is something that he wants to improve on, as we all do. And for me, it's one of the hardest roles to do. So please give a warm welcome to Dennis, who is going to introduce himself.
Toastmasters and honoured guests. I'm here evaluating Martin Doe. Martin Doe is going to be giving his first speech from the Advanced Competent Communication Manual on Persuasive Speaking. The objectives of the speech is to present a persuasive process used in sales. Number 2, elicit information from the prospective buyer through questions. Number 3, match the buyer's situation with the most appropriate product. Martin Doe, the title of his speech is Selling an Inexpensive Product. Martin Doe speaking on speech on selling an inexpensive product. Martin Doe.
Just to make sure everybody knows, this speech is 8 to 12 minutes. So a bit longer than usual, and it does say on the time as well.
We have all tried, at some time in our lives, with great adroitness, to sell something. Whether, as a child, we've tugged on an adult's arm to persuade them to buy something on our behalf that we wanted. Whether it's informing an employer of all of our skills so that they will take us on when we're in an interview. Or maybe it's just trying to place an item on eBay that we want to send on its way to a better place. This is relevant for all of us. So I personally am interested to improve my skills, but I think that this will be of relevance to us all. I'm going to be talking through what would make an effective sales strategy for an inexpensive product. The reason being that there is another project later in my manual which will talk about when price is a factor. But for now, we're going to say price is not a factor, we're just talking about inexpensive items. So I'll describe a bit about that. Then we will have a role play, and Angela has kindly volunteered to be a buyer, a prospective customer. And then finally, we'll just have a discussion about the role play and see what we can all learn from it. Let me begin then with talking about the sales process. So I'll talk about what would make an effective salesman. We'll talk about what's going through the buyer's mind, and then I'll explain the sales strategy which I will be following in the role play. Let's begin with the salesman. So there are 5 things really that the salesman should be trying to do. The first is focus on the buyer. It's not about me, it's not about the bonus that I will get, it's about the buyer. What does the buyer want? So the second thing I need to do, and we should all do if we want to sell something, is listen. What does the buyer want? What are they telling us about their goals, what their needs are? And the third thing that we need to do, so having listened to them, we need to create value for the buyer. Fourthly, radiating credibility. And fifthly, just having a great attitude. We don't want to get angry with the customer. They won't be very impressed. Let's go now and talk about the buyer. What does the buyer want out of this? Well, the author Norbert Orcherson, in his book, The Anatomy of Persuasion, identified 5 key stages in the buying process. So the first is a realization of a need. Secondly, an awareness of its importance. And then thirdly, a search for fulfillment. So in plain language, you realise you're bored, you decide to do something about it, and you go to the bookstore and decide that you're going to leaf through and look for something to relieve your boredom. So those are the first 3 stages. The 4th stage is then an evaluation of alternatives, and 5thly, the decision to buy. So now, let's talk about what we should be doing if we want to be an effective salesperson. So the first thing that we should try to do is to create a rapport. So creating trust needs to happen before we can have an effective buying process. So having created that trust, we then need to ask lots and lots of questions to find out what it is that the buyer wants. What are they planning to do? What are their needs? What problems are they having? Then recommending some alternatives and showing how they match the problem or the needs of the buyer. Having done that, looking for buying signals, and so confirming or confirming the decision to buy, and then finally just closing the sale or finalising the purchase. So those are the steps that I will now be going through. So we are in a department store, and we're just in the clock section. And I'm the salesman. I just happen to have noticed that there is a casual customer who happens to be around the clock section. So let's see how I get on. Angela, fancy seeing you here. Well. All these meetings at Toastmasters, and I've just seen you here in the store. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
Marvellous.
I'm just coming in because I'm looking for a clock.
Oh, right. Actually, did you know I work here?
No.
Oh, right. Oh, well. Oh, fancy that.
Normally, wherever I go, I always see somebody I know, so I always have to be able.
Oh, well. Terrific. Well, so are you looking for something for your living room, or what?
Oh, yes, and a clock that's slightly got a few big dials on it, and also maybe if you can tempt me, I might even have 2, because I might have a big one with some big dials on it so I can see it at a distance, right. And then maybe another one that's got an alarm that rings and tells me whatever I can do.
So is it important for you to be able to see the clock from a long distance away?
That is quite important.
Yeah. Have you got any clocks at the moment that are causing you problems?
I've got a couple of clocks that are very small on the dial, and my friend gave me a clock that she thought was great, but it's a bit awkward because it works backwards. So whereas we've got the 8 on the normal clock, that clock will be the 4. So you have to think which way round is it going and where is it?
So where are you planning for this clock to go? Is this going to go in the living room?
Well, yeah, I'm a person that likes a clock in every room, so I can see the time wherever I am.
So is it important for you to be able to have clocks which are easy to change?
Yeah,
as well?
yeah, too. Right. Not too high up, nice and easy, so I can put a battery in and change it. Right. And when the clocks go back, at the end of the month, I can just turn around and come back.
Okay, so for those, it's just important to be able to tell the time. Do you need it to be...
I like a clock too that's quite simple, because when it gets digital and when it gets... I'm technophobic, so don't give me anything like that. Right,
okay. And you mentioned you wanted an alarm clock as well.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And is that for waking you up?
Yes, sorry. Yes, it's just for waking up in the morning and making sure it wakes me up. Because normally some people say to me, I can come into your room, I can creep into your room, and you never hear me.
Right, right, okay. Well, we do have some things that might be of interest. For the living room, what I would say, based on what you told me, you said that you wanted to have a clock that was easy to see from a long distance. Well, this one, I don't know whether you prefer digital or analog, but this one has quite a large clock face, and this is actually radio controlled. So if you have these in the house, when the clocks go backwards and forwards, you don't actually need to change it. So it's battery operated, as you can see. It's quite easy to change on the back. So that shouldn't require any complicated controls at all. That one. This one is digital. It has a backlighter. It has a few other bits of information on there: the temperature and the moon size and the date. So whether you actually want that, but that's a bit more information on there.
I think the good part about the second one is that maybe when you're in bed at night, or if you have to wake up in the middle of the night, if it's got a light on it, you can actually see the time.
Yes, you can see that one.
Turn the light on to see the time.
Well, this one actually, if you're in bed, because it's not connected to the mains, the time keeps just coming on and off. But that one you can see during the night as well. This one has an adjustable volume on the alarms at the back. So that if you want a loud alarm that would wake you up, this one would do that. It also actually tells you the time, and you can adjust the languages. So that's German, and it's just told you the time, but you can set it for English as well. The only thing with this one, though, is there are various controls. So if you want something simple, then you can go for that, an alarm like this one, but that's a bit smaller. Yes. So on that then, would you
I think I would like that one.
You would like that one? Right.
That one seems to meet all the needs.
Right,
And
okay.
everything. Does that one to have the colour, you can see it at night? Or
Yes, you can. Well, you can set this one to be an alarm as well, which I didn't mention. So this one would actually meet your requirement for an alarm. And yes, it does have a light at night, if you were to see that. So would you like to come to the cash register now?
One point, I suppose, that we haven't mentioned is how much is the price of it?
Oh, this will be about £15.
Right.
Yeah. So is that in your price range?
Yeah. So it's about 15.
No, great. Okay, great. Well, we'll go and I'll wrap it up for you. Great. Right, just very quickly, thank you very much, Angela.
Thank you.
That begins my sales career. So, just very quickly, one or two comments, just on the role play. Angela.
Have you got another one?
Great. Yeah, well, in fact, if you buy 10, you'll get a discount. So, Mike.
Your client told you she was interested possibly in 2 clocks. You only closed on one.
Right, very well. Yes, thank you.
Less than 30 seconds after Angela said, I don't like digital, you said, I don't know whether you like analog or digital.
Okay, so I wasn't being a very good listener there. But then she ended up buying a digital one. Still funny. Yes.
There's 2 things I'd like to mention. First of all, your bête noire showed its head, and I found for the first 2-3 minutes you were very breathless,
right,
and you were running faster by the mouth to catch up.
Right.
There wasn't enough air going through your mouth, and I felt it became quite obvious. What you must do is just calm yourself down and take a pause. Secondly, because I'm sitting to your right and the person you're interviewing is on the left, I know all about the back of your shirt.
Thank you very much. That's all we have time for. One final quote. Sales are contingent on the attitude of the salesman, not the attitude of the prospect. That's from W. Clement Smith, I believe. Thank you.